an object with any of the six senses, and is aware of the presence or absence of lust, hatred, or delusion internally, then are these things to be known by faith? Are these things to be known by fancy, by oral tradition, by personal theory, by reflective acceptance of a view? Then the bhikkhus answered, no. Of course, these things are things that you realize yourself through your own personal experience without having to rely on any external authority, whether it's faith or fancy or tradition or whatever. So the Buddha said, this bhikkhus is the method by which a bhikkhu, apart from faith, fancy, oral tradition, personal theory, reflective acceptance of a view, can declare final knowledge of an arahant. So even by watching your mind, when it reacts to any of the six senses, can lead you to arahantship. We all know that faith is very important. In fact, it's one of the 5 factors of exertion called the Padhaniyanga, found in the Padhaniyanga Sutta, Anguttara Nikaya, Book of 5, Sutta number 53. And faith is one of those faculties that we have to develop in order to get enlightened. However, our compassionate Buddha also could tell us a method for people, for truth seekers, whose faith faculty is much weaker than their wisdom faculty. And they can still practice and they can still get total liberation. Of course, I'm not saying that faith is invincible, but you can look at this sutta that there are certain exceptions to the rule. And I'm sure that people who find the Kalama Sutta inspiring will also find this sutta very inspiring, because you don't have to rely on faith, you just have to watch your mind. Well, I've covered a wide range of subjects in my attempt to share with you the guidelines for conflict management laid down by the Buddha and the ancient Theras. But now, let me summarize before I conclude. So the conflict management measures by the Buddha and the ancient Theras comprise of preventive and curative measures. Under preventive, we have 1, to nurture humble attitudes; 2, to abandon the 6 roots of disputes; 3, to cultivate 6 memorable things that create love and respect and conduce to concord and unity. And then the curative measures are, if a dispute does arise, to meet cordially and evaluate the claims based on doctrinal and experiential criteria. So in conclusion, this is my proposal for harmony in diversity based on the above guidelines. Well, the best thing is to prevent it from happening, and so to nurture humble attitudes. First of all, try to be equanimous and objective when criticized or praised. Keep cool when you are discussing views, opinions, and beliefs. Now check if your motivations for speaking are related to the 6 root causes of disputes. If you find that they are, don't speak, keep quiet. And you can only do that effectively if you cultivate the habit of guarding your mind door. Guarding the doors of your senses, particularly your mind door, is step number 2 in the Buddha's scheme of the gradual training, which I outlined to you at the beginning of the retreat. I don't know whether you remember. Number 1 is guarding your precepts. Number 8 is developing the jhanas. So step number 2 is guarding the doors of your senses, including your mind door. Okay, the second thing is to be cautious when professing a view. Remember that all our views, most of our views, are based on the 5 grounds. And if they are based on the 5 grounds, like the Buddha said, it is not sufficient for you to come to any definite conclusion that only this is correct and others are wrong. They must always try to allow for an element of uncertainty, because what you believe in may be wrong, but what you do not believe in might turn out to be right. And finally, be receptive to others' views. As we can see in Panchaganga Sutta and many other suttas, the Buddha tailored his discourses to suit the audience. and he preached differently according to different people's temperaments. So what may work for you might not work for others, and vice versa. We have to remember that. Although we have very clear-cut doctrinal criteria to evaluate a claim, it is clear-cut only in principle, but in practice it is almost impossible to determine what are the authentic words of the Buddha. And that is also the province of scholars. Most of us do not have the inclination, interest, time or resources to really study the scriptures to find out what is the true words of the Buddha. I think that for many of us, the most applicable criteria is the list of experiential criteria. But if you do have the interest, capability or resources or time to study the Dhamma Vinaya, and especially if you're a local Malaysian monk, you're most welcome to join us here in SBS, where we try to balance study and practice. Then you'll be able to distinguish what is canonical, what is commentarial, what are teachers' interpretation, and what are personal views. But let's have a look at the experiential criteria again, because for most of us that will be our guideline. Okay, to review, there are 14 here altogether, and if you find that the method of practice leads to these things, to dispassion, to being unfettered, to shedding, to modesty, to contentment, to seclusion, to aroused effort, to being unburdensome, to utter disenchantment, to cessation, to calm, direct knowledge, self-awakening, and nibbana, then go ahead. I wish to add that these results should be successively apparent in the beginning, middle, and end of the practice, not only after the attainment of Theravadin Maggaphala. I'm stressing the importance of experience over doctrine only because I want to avoid any dispute over exclusive claims. For even the most learned scholar can be biased and attached to his own views and interpretations, even being self-righteous about propagating his understanding of truth by denouncing other interpretations. The experiential criteria that I quoted from the Buddha involve not just meditative experiences, but the totality of human moral experience reflected in one's bodily, verbal, and mental conduct. Further, this set of criteria comes from the suttas, so it is doctrinal as well. In fact, mere meditative experience without a sound doctrinal basis can be dangerous. For example, in the 62 types of wrong views listed in the Brahmajala Sutta, 20 or 32.3% were based on misinterpretations of meditative experience, while 42 or 67.7% were mere speculations. The commentary, however, gives a different set of figures. According to one reckoning, 47 out of the 62 or 75.8% were based on misinterpretation of meditative experience, while only 15 out of the 62, which is 24.2%, were mere speculations. There is a saying, theory without practice is useless. Practice without theory is dangerous. So in order to have the correct interpretation of meditative experience, one needs to know enough doctrinal teachings. And for this reason, all truth seekers are encouraged to balance study and practice. So, as a final word, if you are a learned meditator, you can make use of both the doctrinal and experiential criteria. But if you are not scholastically inclined, then you can make use of the experiential criteria listed out just now to ascertain whether the practice that you are doing, that you have chosen, is really the Buddha's teaching or not, whether it's a real Dhamma Vinaya or not. If it passes the test and it suits you, because practicing it makes you gradually reduce the intensity and frequency of the defilements, go ahead and practice accordingly until you attain liberation. Feel free also to encourage others to follow suit so that they can also reap similar benefits. However, if they find another more suitable method that conforms with the Buddha's experiential criteria, even if it differs from yours, rejoice and encourage them. Marvel at the richness and versatility of the Buddha's Dhamma Vinaya. When we have the fortitude to be faithful to our conviction and yet have enough metta to be accepting of those who think and practice differently, we will be mature enough to enjoy the blessing of communal harmony in diversity. And Venerable U Mangala has to add, we will be able to help all those who think and practice differently with the purest intention and deepest compassion. Fortified with a pure mind, sincerity and compassion, when we offer criticism, we can be internally at peace when our criticism is rejected. And we will never be easily provoked into incurring defilements when our views are pointed out, rightly or wrongly, to be wrong. Again, U Mangala concludes, having fortified our heart and mind with Dhamma, we will always have harmony in our mind in all situations. That will be the real root cause for the blessing of communal harmony in diversity. Blessed is the arising of the Buddhas. Blessed is the preaching of the true Dhamma. Blessed is harmony in the Sangha. Blessed is the spiritual pursuit of the united. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.